2021. And I could not be more excited. I think that's true. I could not be more excited for today's episode. I am so thrilled and excited to have back in the house the one, the only, the amazing Margi DeLynn. Hey, Margi DeLynn.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Why are you here?
Why am I here? What am I doing here?
Margi is here for part 2 of our discussion that we started a few weeks ago on telling loved ones about losing your faith. And we were able to kind of cover a framework which dealt a lot with acceptance and what I call the Nephi complex, which is the fact that so many, what I want you to do is go back and watch part 1. It's a super important foundation for what you are going to be hearing today. So episode 1476A, go back and watch that, and then come back to this if you haven't seen it. Or if you're joining us live, you can listen to this today and then go back and listen to that next time. Either way, we're here for part 2 of our discussion that is part of the series on the Gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis podcast. So if you go to mormonfaithcrisis.com right now, there's over 70 hours of free coaching to help people through a faith crisis. And literally 10 times a day, someone messages me on Instagram or Facebook or email and says, I'm starting a faith crisis. I'm about to die. My marriage is about to end. Please help me. And my first reaction is, have you checked out the Gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis podcast, which me and Natasha Helfer and Margi created a few years ago? Inevitably, they say no. And then I say, go there. But what we want to do is start bringing this type of content to Mormon Stories Podcast, the regular stream, with the improved video, with the improved lighting and audio, and with the much beloved and all around super popular Carah Burrell. Hey, Carah Burrell.
Hey.
How are you doing?
People who follow me on Instagram will know that I have a little bit of a voice problem right now. So I got lozenges, I've got some tea. I won't be talking very much today because I don't want to cough into the microphone, but I'm excited to be here.
Aww.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so what you can expect is around once a week, someone like Natasha, someone like Margi, a coach or a therapist who specializes in healing and growth for people beyond Mormonism. We will be releasing episodes on the Mormon Story stream for this type of content. So that's what you're in store for today. I do want to do a quick plug for the Thrive Beyond Religion or the Thrive Beyond Mormonism conference. Thrive Day 2021 is November 14th in the Salt Palace. Sarah Edmondson of A Little Bit Culty podcast, former NXIVM victim, and author of the book Scarred, and also co-star in the HBO series The Vow, will be keynoting at Thrive Day, along with Lance Allred, former NBA basketball player, first legally deaf NBA basketball player, played with LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, recovery from the Allred group, former, polygamous cult. Lance Allred's going to be keynoting. Natasha will be there. I'll be there. Bill Reel will be there. Radio Free Mormon will be there. Monica Crowfoot from the Native American Women episode that we did is going to be there. And Luna Corbden from the Book Recovering Agency, and many, many more. Lots of cool TikTokers. Carah, your voice isn't working.
I know. I am going to absolutely eat my own words that I'm like, I'm not going to be talking very much until I have something to say, obviously. No, yeah. So should I announce that we're doing a TikTok panel?
Yeah, please.
So I'm really excited for this. Clint asked me to put together a TikTok panel. So we put our heads together of flying different people in, honestly, even to come to this panel. So we have Kylene, we have ex-Molex, we have ex-Mormon Mindy, Jack Mormon. His name is Jack Price. So Jack Mormon, who does the lips and eyes things. He's so funny.
He is so funny.
Jordan and McKay, Devil Trout, and me. So if those names ring a bell and you're on TikTok, you'll know that we got some real heavy hitters, some real hilarious people. So I think around 1:00 at the Thrive event, we're going to be doing a different panel, different Q&A. I'm not quite sure exactly what it's going to look like yet, but it's going to be so much fun. So forgive my voice. I kind of sound kind of cool though. So I'm not opposed to talking into the microphone. I kind of sound I sound like kind of a cool chick. I sound like somebody who works at Quicksilver who's like, hey, can I get a room ready for you?
Exactly.
Does that make sense to anyone? Anyway, so I'm really excited for that. People, please come out. And we'll do like a meet and greet and stuff too. So if those names ring a bell and you're excited about that, come. We can get like pictures and hang out and just like a meet and greet at Thrive as well with all these people. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
All right, yeah. And what are you guys going to be doing in your little skit? Like, what is it?
We have an hour, and I want to say probably the second half for Q&A, and then the first half, I don't know what it's going to look like quite yet, but it's going to be phenomenal because I've got like some of the most amazing people.
So like comedy kind of maybe a little bit, or?
I am not sure. I want to make sure whatever it is, it's going to be the best use of everyone's time. I haven't decided yet what I think we're going to be doing.
Okay,
but
all right.
We got all of the coolest people,
It's gotta
so
be fun,
put our
though.
heads together.
It's
We'll come up
gotta
with
be
something
cool
really
and fun at a minimum.
Yeah.
Cool and fun. So we appreciate your patience as we do public service announcements. It's literally to help you heal and grow and thrive, and we want everyone to be there. This is a nonprofit event. Our friends, the Martins, are putting down like 15 grand just to reserve the Salt Palace. Nobody's making any money off of this. We are paying our speakers. We're paying our speakers airfare, giving them a speaker fee, but nobody's profiting from this event. It's $25 a person for a full day of healing and growth. We're going to help you meet people. And all of these cool people that I mentioned are going to have booths. So if you want to meet, if you want to buy merch from, Carah, if you want to meet a Radio Free Mormon and Bill Reel, if you want to meet Monica Crowfoot, or have Luna Corbden sign their book, any of these TikTokers, we will have booths available for these people that you may want to meet. So you can meet and greet them during the breaks, during lunch, etc. So it's going to be amazing. Please tell the world. Please come support us so that we don't reserve the Salt Palace and then nobody shows. That's probably not going to happen. But more importantly, buy your ticket now before it sells out, because the Thrive for Women conference, which is actually this weekend, already sold out. They had to upgrade the venue 3 times. So before you aren't able to get your ticket, go to thrivebeyondreligion.com/events. Carah will put that in the show notes and in the comments, and we'll make sure, buy your tickets now, and we're going to have a great time. Okay, so that's enough for the public service announcements for now. You are in for what I think is a really important show. Last time we talked, Margi and I kind of set a foundation that, if I were just to summarize, the foundation would be that the best thing you can do when you have a faith crisis and you plan on letting your loved ones know is practice acceptance, which means that they may surprise you pleasantly, but more likely than not, you're going to disappoint them and they're going to be sad, and you should just accept that. Today, what we're going to do is we are going to go through kind of micro details on the process of coming out. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover why, thinking through the why of whether or not you come out. There are reasons to not disclose, and there are reasons to disclose. So we're going to cover that. We're going to cover when to come out or not come out. We're going to cover who you should and shouldn't come out to. And we're going to talk about how to come out and what to say or what not to say. And I also have to say that sometimes members of the LGBT community have said to me, John, using the term coming out is offensive to us, because disclosing about a faith crisis, shouldn't be using the same language about like coming out about your sexuality. And I'm torn about that only because I've had LGBT people also tell me that disclosing about their loss of faith was actually more difficult than disclosing their sexuality or their gender identity. Now, having said that, I want to be respectful to the LGBTQ community. So I'm going to try not to use the term coming out, but if I mess up, you guys can correct me or whatever. So that's kind of my intro for today. We are live streaming this on YouTube. We're super grateful for all of our YouTube people. And we have also solicited your comments and feedback. So we want to just ask our YouTube people who are listening, if you've got a particular situation, a concern, whatever it is, we would love your comments or questions, and we'll try and entertain those live. So without any further ado, Margi, what would you like to add to the introduction you just heard?
Well, I don't think I need to add anything to the introduction, honestly. We could move to what's working if you wanted, but you did a very nice job on that intro.
Okay. So the What's Working segment, that's a good idea. Thank you, love. The What's Working segment is something that we did on the Gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis podcast with Natasha, where we just start the episode by just talking about one thing that's working in our lives to help us heal or grow or have better mental health or better relationships or whatever. So Margi, I'm going to ask you to go first. What's working for you right now, Margi?
Okay, John. So I have a couple things. One thing that is working for me recently, just last night, John and I made an amazing apple crisp. And what really worked about that apple crisp was a double crumb. I just doubled the crumb kind of part of the recipe. And it was delicious. We had a couple of our kids come over. We turned on the outside lights, lit the fire. It was beautiful. So I'm just leaning into fall right now. The weather's changed a little bit, and I'm loving using our outdoor space, which we worked on this past winter. So apple crisp, baby, fall season. That's my first thing.
Okay.
And you were part of that, John. John was an important part of making that apple crisp.
Yeah, that was actually fun to cook with you again. Like when COVID happened, we started cooking a lot together, and that was a real joy. That was working for me quite a bit. It's just slowing down and cooking meals with my love. That kind of fell by the wayside as COVID has let up a little bit. And so it was so nice to cook with you again. I agree.
Yeah, we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back.
Gosh darn it.
The second thing I mentioned it in my Instagram feed, but I'll bring it up here. I received a book from a friend of mine. So shout out Holly. And this is a book where it's not for everyone probably, but it's just hit me up strong. It's daily. It has like a daily thought to it. It's written by Nepo, who I actually hadn't heard of before the book, but I'm just loving it. I've been doing it the past 3 days. I get up, meditate, and then read the little excerpt. I would probably say it maybe takes 2 or 3 minutes to read. And then I'm going to ask for a little journal for my birthday coming up, because they ask little questions at the end that are really simple, take you through a little process. And an example of something lately, I was just telling John this morning, one of the most recent days was about how oftentimes with pain, it brings up kind of it's called Chinese handcuffs. I don't know if you guys remember those weaves where you put your fingers in to the little weave paper, and then when you try to get your fingers out, it tightens and you can't. And it was an analogy about pain, that if you if you're acting against pain and trying to just sort of get out of it, it becomes tighter and it has like a tighter grip. Whereas if you lean into it and release into it, then you're able to kind of remove your fingers, and that kind of suffering's lessened. Simple things like that. I don't know. It's meeting me where I live in a simple way every morning. So those are 2 things that are working for me right now.
I love it. I love it. Well, you're working for me. That's one thing that's working. Having you work with me in this capacity.
I appreciate it.
Is also working for me.
Thank you. That is also working for me.
Because honestly, being in a marriage where we can partner on something that's meaningful, that gives, I don't know, that's exhilarating. It's edifying. And I love that. My brother Joel challenged me to meditate every morning because he felt like my brain was going crazy. Why are you laughing, Margi? That's rude. That's so rude. Carah, why are you laughing? That's also, I'm kidding. There's
nothing funny about that. I don't know.
So no, he just felt like it might help me. So I've started meditating, use the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. And I've been meditating twice a day. And that's been nice, just to do a little 10-minute guided meditation. Helps me be more aware of my brain as it tends to ruminate on things. And then also, I have been listening to music a little more. I find that music helps soothe me a little bit. And I used to love listening to music all the time. So I rediscovering Jerry Rafferty. So you guys, if you've heard Right Down the Line or Baker Street, Jerry Rafferty was like our super popular singer-songwriter of the late 70s, early 80s. And I've been listening to one of his albums, and sometimes it gives me good feels.
Yeah.
So that's been working for me. Carah, Your voice is...
I got to take myself off mute.
Okay.
So I was coughing.
What's working for you, Carah?
I like that you said music because I think in this space, like, we get kind of obsessed with like, okay, if I'm not working now, I need to like be listening to something that'll help me for work. I need to be listening to another podcast, and I need to take so many breaks from thinking about anything Mormon related, religion related, psychology. I need to take a break from that stuff. So John knows this. I listen to Rocksteady and Caribbean Queen on this playlist. I just literally have a playlist, and that's all I listen to for sometimes hours. I was driving into work today, and like, I got to get pumped, got to get going, and I just, she began to rock steady. Yeah, I love how good I sound in the microphone. I can hear it. Thank you, Margi. Yeah, like, I just love songs that get me pumped and are like funky and make your hips move, and I totally forget about any worries or anything I have to do with work. So yeah.
That's brilliant.
Music that makes your hips move is my thing that works.
That's working for you.
Dude, like, if you're not here, I shouldn't say it, but I tell the machine to, the one that starts with an A. I just like blankety blank or send. Play Rocksteady at volume 10. Oh, please do not turn on. Oh my gosh. But anyway. All right. That's what works for me. My life is pretty much chaos otherwise, but that works really well.
I love it. Okay. Well, thanks, Carah, and thanks, Margi, and thanks our listeners. If you want to share anything that's working for you, we've got several listeners now tuned in. Go ahead and just type in on YouTube what's working for you, and we'll ask Carah to read. She can jump in and share anything that's working just here and there, just to kind of share the love, because we know that what we're not setting up is a new religion with new cult leaders. Like, we know that many of you listening and watching are actually smarter or wiser than we are. So we would love to learn from you. That's part of what we do. Okay. So Margi, let's dive in. I would have to say, I said this yesterday in an amazing episode with Thomas and Cece Stokes, that by far the hardest part of a faith crisis is communicate with believing family and friends. I think I can just say that. It's not the spiritual stuff. It's not losing God or Jesus. If you lose it, it's not even community. Those things are all huge. But I would say the biggest thing, number one big thing, is like, do I tell my spouse? Do I tell my parents? How am I going to pull this off? And so that's why we're doing 2 full episodes on this. And so as we kind of cover this, let's start with why, because I think, Margi, one of the things you often love to do is to focus on intention. Can you just introduce this idea of intention? I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot, but I would love you to talk just for a bit about intention and how that might color, how that might help inform and make your coming out more effective. And then we can talk about reasons to not disclose and reasons to disclose. But anything you want to say about intention?
Sure. I view connecting with the intention or the why. Just on the spot, there are a couple things I connect with. The first is it tends to clarify. It tends to clarify a lot of things all at once. So by identifying why you're wanting to tell, what the purpose is for you to tell, can often, I think, it sheds the extra. It clarifies kind of to you what's important, and usually it points to a value or two. So I really like it for that, the clarifying nature of it. But I also love that it becomes the driver. It especially, I think, in situations that are as murky and uncomfortable as these, right? Where we're talking about communicating something that's hard, something that's new to us, that feels uncertain. It becomes this driver. It becomes a momentum that pushes you forward. And that can be really helpful, I think, when we're feeling scared and we're feeling vulnerable.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And I'll add that I think one of the most important reasons to get really centered on your intention for disclosing is it can help you decide that in some instances you really shouldn't be disclosing.
Exactly.
Because if you're disclosing for the wrong reasons, it's just going to harm you and other people. Margi, I'll tell this quick story. When we were first married, I sometimes wonder, I don't know, my personality's quirky. Sometimes I feel like if it's true, you get to say it no matter what. Even if it's harmful or hurtful, you just speak the truth. And I think I entered into our marriage hating lies and hating hiding things so much. I saw so much damage with secrets being kept and lies or things being hidden that I'm just like, nope, truth always wins, truth in all circumstances. And sometimes I think in our arguments, I would just say, hey, anything goes if it's true. And I think I learned pretty quickly with you. Do you remember the quote you shared with me one time? Should I share it or do you want to share it?
I don't remember. Is it around causing harm or something?
I think you said to me once, truth without compassion is cruelty.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
How come I remember that and you don't? And you told it to me. Now you're probably like, she's probably having like traumatic memories in her brain, and that's why she's so quiet. No, but yeah, you said that truth without compassion is cruelty or can be cruelty. And I realized then that there's nothing, that if you're living an advanced, sophisticated, enlightened life, there's no such thing as one value that's going to be governing your behavior. A lot of people really value truth. But the truth is that truth is only one of many values, and compassion should be a value, and kindness should be a value, and empathy should also be a value. And so as you're kind of thinking about your intentions, you should probably start by getting centered on your own values, because your values should govern everything you do. And as we talked about acceptance and commitment therapy last time we had this episode, I'm going to return to ACT or acceptance and commitment therapy again and again and again. Values should literally govern every aspect of your life. Just because you're no longer religious in an Orthodox Mormon way does not mean that you don't have values. And so, again, as you're thinking about coming out and as you're starting to think about the whys, I think one of the most important things you could do is literally write down your values. And I'm going to recommend a few values to you: kindness, compassion, empathy. Are there any other values, Margi, that you would add that might help govern and shape your disclosure or non-disclosure? Or are those the big ones? And honesty, right?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's an authenticity value.
Authenticity, that's huge. Authenticity, that's amazing.
And I will just point out, because you brought up values, and I feel like we could actually do an episode on values and how to come up with those, and then how to make those lived values. Because it's one thing just to kind of identify 8 values and say, okay, those are my values. It's another thing to come up with values and then develop how those values show up in your daily life, how they show up now, and then how you would like to have them show up. And oftentimes you find people who are feeling, I don't know, like a disconnect in their life. What they'll find is they actually hold a value, but that value actually is not being actively lived in their day-to-day experience. So that might be a fun thing to do. But my point was to bring up, these situations that we bring up come, when we decide to tell our loved ones or to kind of share our change of faith with people close to us. Sometimes it brings up a conflict of values. And that's where you find a lot of people hitting, where they stagnate and feel stuck. They have authenticity. They're wanting to tell, they're wanting to have this sense of being true to themselves, but they also value relationships, and they can feel like, right, it's going to disrupt their relationships, or it may be safety. It disrupts their sense of safety or their parents' sense of safety. And that's where values can get a little bit complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just say it one more time. If there's anything I've seen in the Mormon Faith Crisis world, it's that Mormons who lose their faith, and we come by it honestly, but Mormons who lose their faith value honesty and authenticity over kindness and compassion and empathy. And so what they do is they beat people over the head with their truth billy club, and they do damage. They damage the other people they damage themselves and they damage their relationships, and nobody wins. So you have to temper, hear me now or believe me later, you have to temper your values of truth and authenticity with the values of kindness and compassion and empathy and just love. So having said all that, once you have gotten grounded on your values, then you should start thinking about your why, your motives for disclosing. And I think we should now list, I don't know, we're going to list maybe up to 10 reasons for not disclosing. Now, this is John DeLynn, probably the world's #1 sort of like discloser, especially in Mormonism and post-Mormonism. Why are you laughing, Margi?
Some truths are funny.
Yeah, I'm like telling you that you don't have to disclose. It is absolutely a valid decision to not disclose your faith crisis with loved ones and family. And now we're going to give you 10 reasons why. Are you ready? Okay, here goes. Margi, do you want to start and just not list them, but do you want to start with #1?
I love that one.
Okay, what's #1? What's the first reason to not disclose potentially?
Yeah, and this may seem a bit strange from how we were raised culturally within a religion that is really high demand, but it's because it's private, because you don't have to, because it can be just yours alone, and that has value, or it can be just, a very narrow set of people you choose to tell. That's fine. You don't owe anyone anything in disclosing, right? And I think that's something that's with our families and with I think that we've been kind of taught this by being asked all sorts of questions and being modeled that we owe it to people to tell all sorts of things about ourselves. And that's on one hand. I think we've also been taught to hide those things that aren't, don't fall in line as well. But it can feel a little bit difficult or strange to kind of hold this sense that what's yours is yours. And you don't owe your truth or these inner parts of you or your vulnerable parts you don't have to show them to people who haven't earned the right to hold them.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the best illustrations of this is kind of like every other major world religion. Like if you look at Baptists or Catholics or Lutherans or Presbyterian, every one of them will tell you religion's a private thing. Like in non-Mormon realms, absence kind of high demand religions or cults, basically, people will just tell you don't talk about religion in polite company. You just don't. If you're in a family gathering, you don't talk about religion. You talk about sports, you talk about the weather, you talk about the children, you gossip about other people, but you just don't talk politics, religion, or sex in mixed company or in friendly company. And so if a Lutheran or a Baptist or a Presbyterian decides to stop attending a certain congregation, I just promise you their family members are probably not going to care very much. Maybe not a Baptist, but definitely an Episcopalian or a Unitarian or a Methodist or a Lutheran. And so the rest of the world models, the rest of kind of the Protestant and even Catholic world kind of models this pretty well. I'm sure Buddhism and Hinduism can be similar, maybe. But so it's private. You owe them nothing. And, that's a really good reason to not disclose. Okay. The second reason to not disclose is compassion. Margi, do you want to hit that one? You want me to take that one? Okay. So the extreme example I always give is the 90-year-old grandmother dying of cancer. Do you really need to sit grandma down who's, on hospice and tell her about peepstones and polyandry and Kinderhook plates and tell her that her entire life has been a fraud months before she passes from this earth? Now that's an extreme example, but I'm sure you can think of a lot of examples of people that it just wouldn't be served by you disclosing. And maybe that's somebody who's not mentally well. Maybe they're depressed. Maybe they were addicted to substances, and Mormonism was the way that they got clean and left their addictions. Maybe they're going through a particularly traumatic experience in their lives, and the church is what keeps them healthy and sane. Maybe they're in a marriage where if they lost their faith, it could jeopardize their entire marriage. Maybe it's a missionary on a mission. Maybe the elders knock on your door and they're in the middle of a mission, and it just wouldn't be good for the elder or the sister to have you shoving Jeremy Runnels in their face. There's lots of reasons, compassionate reasons, why you just don't disclose. And I am just going to say that non-disclosure is, for reasons of compassion, is an absolutely valid thing.
Can I just ask a question? Are we going to be getting into like the ego of this? Like about how when you're asking the why, I always stop and try to think of like, what is the ego in the back of my mind actually trying to say? Mm-hmm. And these, obviously I do this for a living, but in my interpersonal relationships, I have no interest in like shoving anything down anyone that I know's throats for those reasons, because it's like, what is actually going to be gained out of this? Because I know that person and I know that they know what's better for them than I know what's better from them. Mm-hmm. And there's a planet of 8 billion people there's a billion Catholics, a billion Muslims, a billion Hindus. What is the good of telling one person what I know to be true now versus there's still billions of other people who believe things that I think are wrong, like that, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, It just feels like there's an ego that a lot of people in this new truth-telling motive, they're not taking into consideration that like one person isn't going to make that big of a difference if you have to shove something down your throat, if it comes at the cost of, like you're saying, like being just not compassionate to what they feel like is right for them in their life. So I think people should just kind of take that, like the bigger picture, 1,000-foot view.
I love it.
Is it really necessary to do that? So
I love it.
I love that comment. One thing I really like about that too is I think unless we process and do the work, then we end up on a level just reproducing the structure we were in on the other way. So we're missionarying just in reverse, just in the other way. And so we end up kind of duplicating still a very problematic paradigm from the other way, and I've heard that be a criticism of kind of the post-Mormon community a bit, is just how didactic it can feel on the other side, where if you want to talk about what if we want to talk about a more enlightened view or what it would involve, like this opposite of growing up in a very cult-like, or let's just say highly controlled container, it would be choice. It would be actually that you feel free to navigate your life in a post-Mormon existence, feeling completely free of paradigms of, feeling like you're again in another formula or in another conformity model.
Yeah. I think, Carah, that's right, Margi. And I think, Carah, one way to kind of say what you're saying is it can be very selfish and ego-driven.
Yeah.
For you to be jamming your issues on everybody else. Like, really, how about just like get a therapist, get a coach, find a close friend, but why do you have to shove your mess on everybody else? I mean, now, obviously, when it's your spouse who you need to talk to, or
which we'll get there,
other people you love, that's a different thing, and we're going to get to that. But yeah, consider whether you're just being selfish. Is that kind of what you're saying, Carah? Yeah. Okay. That's great. So yeah, I think selfishness is the opposite of compassion, kind of. So that's a great point, Carah. Thank you for bringing that out. You too, Margi. Okay. The third reason to not disclose is that most people do not want to know, and they don't want to talk about it. Do you want to do this one? Okay. So, one of the biggest cliches in a faith crisis is the letter, writing the letter. We know about Jeremy Runnels writing the CES letter. How many of you have written the letter? And it's kind of like this 70-page, every issue you've ever, learned about, every historical issue that you ever confronted, every social justice issue that the church, has ever violated, with 10,000 footnotes. How many of you have written that email or that letter that you thought was so important and you just had to share, do weeks and months and years of research, and then you had to share that with everyone you knew. And so you write that letter or you write that email and you send it to everybody. And Margi, can you tell us what the most common responses to that letter and or email usually are?
Oh, well, it's usually silence. You
Silence?
say crickets. Crickets.
Yep, that's called the crickets effect. So that's part of it. And then in your experience,
or there can be a new rhythm kind of introduced where they try to reconvert you. You'll notice just a lot of that's
but in the subsection of they don't want to know, in addition to the crickets effect, in your experience, what percentage of those emails or letters actually get read?
Oh, yeah, very few.
Yeah, almost none. So I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just trying to have you read my mind. I apologize for that. But most of those emails and letters, number one, never even get read. And number two, they don't get responded to. So you're kind of like shaking your fist to the wind. And then there's always, we'll talk about the backfire effect and like you said, Margi, kind of the bad side
that
effects.
That also happens.
Totally. And we're going to talk about that next.
Mm-hmm.
But the point I'm making is they don't want to know. Most people don't want to know. And so why are you going to be, this goes along with the idea of compassion, but why are you going to be shoving stuff down people's throats that they don't want to hear? And, and it's hard all the time. Just yesterday when we did, we'll do a 6-hour interview with a couple. We did this with Thomas and Cece Stokes. And you know what question they asked me, Margi? Are any of our family even going to watch this, right? Carah, I'm curious. What percentage of your family members actually watched your Mormon Stories podcast interview and gave you feedback about it?
Oh, none, for sure, none. Are you kidding me?
Margi, how many of your when you did your beautiful interview with me or your TED Talk, Thrive Talks or whatever, what percentage of your family members came to you and said, "Oh man, I loved your podcast interview and I loved what you said at Thrive," or even gave you feedback about it,
Yeah, very few.
Yeah, they don't want to know. And it's not that they hate you. Some people need therapy because there's no response. Like this cricket thing, I'm not trying to trivialize it. People sometimes need therapy. It's really disturbing when you think about the fact that these are your parents. These are your siblings, maybe your best friends. These are members of your ward that you were maybe Relief Society bishop over or served with or served over as bishop or elders quorum president. Like if anybody, these were people you loved, your best friends. These people should care. And they don't. And they don't because, who wants to go through a faith crisis? It's traumatic and hard. We wouldn't have 1,500 hours of Mormon Stories podcast episodes if a faith crisis wasn't hard and traumatic. And so, of course, they don't want to go through that. So they don't want to know. So have I beaten a dead horse, Margi? Do you want to add anything to that?
Just that I think, we live in a time that's hard. And I think there are reasons for people grasping onto structures really tightly. And so that goes back to that compassion of understanding that for some people it's a mental health, like they're just holding on. And so, they can't handle this at this time. And so, I think there's a lot of compassion to be had in understanding that life is stressful. And people may have, they may be protecting out of a sense of really, this is the way they can be alive right now, is to hold on to this structure.
Did you say everything that you wanted to say about that before we move on to the next point?
Yeah.
So the next problem would be maybe they try to reconvert you. And if you disclose to them what your problems are with the church.
Yeah. So true. I think oftentimes what ends up happening is you become now a focus in the family, particularly too, if a lot of your family members are still active and you are differentiating. I think inadvertently it can create a new rhythm where you're experiencing an increase in ensign articles in your inbox, or your mom drops by and wants to tell you about the lessons she taught on Sunday, and so as you're trying to transition and you need space, you're actually being brought even more, and it becomes just a highly stimulating, highly triggering kind of event for you, where it increases. You're getting an increase to the things that you're actually feeling really, really, triggered by.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to John's point a couple seconds ago about how like your parent, like it's crazy making behavior when you go through something and your family doesn't understand this is the hardest thing I've ever gone through.
Yeah.
The crickets are there,
Yeah.
and then to add insult to injury, they don't even understand, and now they're just like throwing ensign articles at you.
Yeah.
Not even understanding like this is the last thing that I want to see right now.
Yeah.
Is you doubling down with me instead of just listening. And
That's right.
I don't know. It feels like that the most painful thing to me in Mormonism, honestly. Sorry to anyone who's watching right now. John's trying to fix my camera, so camera's on Margi. But
it's my face, but your voice.
Yeah, one of those most painful things is like you are trying so desperately to feel heard and feel seen, but your family members are taking the side of the thing that's kind of hurting you, and they are choosing that over you, and it feels like a dagger in the heart every time.
That's right. And quite frankly, it adds a layer of stress to you. You're already going through something hard, and now you've got an added layer with relationships. Yeah. Really true.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So I just have to tell people that I apologize that Carah's camera just went out. We've got some technical glitches. So you're going to have to just listen to Carah and see me and Margi. So our condolences. Carah, I'm sorry about that. If I can fix it while Margi and you were talking,
Our
I'll do that.
sincerest condolences.
But I know it's a tragedy actually. But I'll just add, yeah, they're going to try and reconvert you, and you need to just know that ahead of time. Because why wouldn't they? If they really believe it's God's one true church, if they really believe you're making heaven sad for them, if you're breaking the eternal family and creating empty chairs, why wouldn't they try and reconvert you? And so, that's another reason to not even talk to them about it, in addition to the fact that it's private and it might not be compassionate and they just simply don't want to know. Okay. The next reason that we have is safety. In other words, sometimes it may not be safe to disclose for you. And Margi, I'm wondering if you've got thoughts on that first, and then I can add.
Or you start.
Okay. All right. So let's just say you're a BYU student and you're under the honor code and you have a faith crisis. Guess what? It's probably not safe for you to come out because you could get kicked out of BYU. And that's, that I almost want to yell the word cult when I say that, but that's a fact. You will get kicked out of BYU and probably add 1 to 2 years to your education, not to mention all the time and money you lose. Disclosing. So it's not safe. You may live in a home with abusive parents and you may not be of age yet to move out. May not be safe. You may be on a mission and it may be too disruptive. You may be with a spouse who wouldn't support you. You may be relying on someone financially right now to take care of you or to give you housing or shelter. You may be in a marriage that wouldn't withstand it, or you may just be in a particular stage in your marriage or life where it would just be too much, adding too much to your mental health or well-being, maybe to the person you might disclose to the family system, so for all sorts of reasons, considering safety, like, don't fall on your sword is what I like to say. Don't disclose at your own peril. This should be common sense. If it's going to hurt you, if it's going to meaningfully hurt you, damage you, I'll say that. If it's going to damage you to disclose, don't disclose. Now, there's a difference between pain and damage. It will be painful to disclose. So I'm not saying don't disclose if you don't want to experience pain. Pain is inextricably linked with usually disclosing, and you cannot grow without pain. It's like lifting weights makes your muscles hurt. Disclosing is going to be painful, but that pain often will lead to incredible growth. But having said all that, if it's going to damage you, why would you ever disclose? Don't do it. Just keep it to yourself. Get to a safer place, or wait till your system or your family is in a safer place and then disclose. Carah.
I just wanted to quickly add that we have a $50 super chat from Jason Ream. So thank you for that. And second, I just wanted to say,
we love Jason.
Yeah, we do love Jason. And second, I wanted to say that it is ironic that I have no voice today and my video is out. So you win this one, patriarchy. I feel your wrath. All right. Sorry. Continue.
Not okay.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, Carah. And if I can get your thing working, I will. Margi, is there anything you want to add to the safety conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to add that, your emotional state and psychological state is part of that safety. That matters too. So this is a big deal. It's an incredibly, I think it can be a really unsettling journey. It can be a really uncertain journey. And so also, if you're having a hard enough time dealing with your own mind, quite frankly, and working through, your sense of identity or, what you want from life, and that's enough, really, that's enough to hold that. That's another reason not to disclose. You matter. Your experience matters, and taking care of yourself, your emotional wellness, your sense of psychological health it should be something that you consider as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the number one consideration. A faith crisis is difficult enough just to deal with all the holes that develop, the spiritual holes, the community holes, the family holes, the marital holes, the sense of meaning and purpose. It's traumatic. It's often as bad or worse than losing a loved one who passes away. It's bad. Again, LGBT people often tell me it was harder to come out as losing my faith than coming out as gay. And we know that coming out as gay sometimes can be super traumatic. And so for all those reasons, just take care of you first, your safety. I love that, Margi. Thank you for reemphasizing your own personal well-being. If it's not healthy for you to disclose, don't disclose. Okay. Okay. The next reason to not disclose is the backfire effect. Again, this goes along with the people don't want to know sort of thing, but you also, and I've said this a million times, but if this is the first time you've tuned into Mormon Stories, I'll just say it really quickly. If you go to the You're Not So Smart podcast, we'll put this in the show notes. There's an episode called The Backfire Effect. And in that episode, it tells you something that's kind of disturbing. Think abortion, think, global warming, think gun control, any issue that's polarizing, the vaccine. When someone is presented with evidence that contradicts their worldview that is tightly interwoven to their identity, right? Political identity, religious identity, any type of their identity. When you present them with evidence that is actually true and factual, but that goes against their closely held beliefs, they actually cling tighter to their beliefs than before. So you actually strengthen their beliefs by challenging them with evidence. You strengthen their beliefs. That's the last thing you want to do, probably, if you've gone through a faith crisis, is make your loved ones believe even stronger in the thing that you've lost faith in. And so you just have to realize that it's not your job. And so not only is it not your job, but you can make it worse when you disclose, because they'll get defensive and then they'll feel unsettled. They'll feel that cognitive dissonance. Oh my gosh, Carah's lost her faith. Oh, that's terrible. She was so strong. Margi lost her faith. Oh, I can't deal with the cognitive dissonance. Let me double down by reading Fair Mormon. And now I'm going to shoot you with the ammo of Fair Mormon as a response to the distress I feel knowing that you lost your faith. So Backfire Effect is a real reason why. Carah, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, my camera doesn't work though, right?
Not yet.
Okay. You guys should see how hard work John, like Margi will be talking and John's jumping up trying to work on my camera. Don't worry about it, John. And he's running back when she's finishing up what she's going to say. No, Fair Mormon is like, that's actually too progressive for my parents. They send me Book of Mormon evidence conference stuff, as you guys might already know if you follow me. So I just wanted to add Scott's comment. If Margi, if you want to speak to this, if you have any idea, he writes, why is it that people don't want to know? What is the reason people feel that way? Is it ego, survival? What's your opinion on why people like to double down and, forcefully inject the backfire effect when they're presented with, facts?
Yeah, well, I'll offer some things, and then if you have ideas, or then John, too. I mean, sometimes I feel like it's this idea of protecting your world, protecting what you've sacrificed so much for. And so I think there's a real level, especially I see that more and more now. I think it can be a very, when you've invested so much, given so much money, given so much time, I think there's actually, isn't there a psychological principle around that?
Sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy, right. So that's something that I see. What are some ideas you have?
Yeah, I think sunken costs as well, that people's entire mental health, I guess, is dependent on this organization to keep them afloat through a very difficult life. And any information that counters that, their brain is only going to look for reasons that it's more true instead of less, because they're feeling like alarm bells, something's going off. If you lose this, we're going to die, we're going to sink, we're going to drown.
Yeah.
So they are more invested in looking for reasons it's true instead of ever being open-minded to the possibility that they're wrong. That's kind of how I would frame it.
Yeah.
And then I'll add a third thing. There's a really good episode I did with a friend named Dr. David Christian once, who talked about utility Mormons and validity Mormons, because you think that people's big decisions in life are just related to facts and evidence. And if, you just give people the evidence and the facts, they'll make the right decisions. But if you've been paying attention at all in 2021, you'll know that facts and evidence do not necessarily lead to a consensus because of confirmation bias and these sorts of other dynamics. And one of the things David Christian taught us is that some people aren't Mormon because it's true. Yeah. They'll say they're Mormon because it's true. They'll say it's because of the history and the Book of Mormon and the feelings I got from the Book of Mormon. Well, that proves it's true. Well, we all know that none of that, feelings don't prove anything's true, or we wouldn't need science. We would just trust our feelings. The truth is that some people are what are called utility Mormons. So there's validity Mormons, utility Mormons. A validity Mormon is Mormon because they think it's true. And if those people truly value evidence, then the evidence can lead them out of the church, because they'll be like, whoa, I was Mormon based on the evidence I had. Oh, now there's new evidence? Oh, well, now I realize it's not true. It's time to get out of here because I found out it's false. That's what a validity Mormon might do. A utility Mormon is Mormon because it works for them. They're Mormon because I'm worried my spouse might cheat on me, and it helps my spouse stay in the church. It helps keep our marriage strong. Or I don't know how else I'd raise my kids without the church, so it helps me raise my kids. Or I'm lonely. I'm this poor person who has no friends. When I go to church, people care about me and love me, and they invite me to things. So the church works for me. So most Mormons are utility Mormons, not validity Mormons. And that's why they don't care they don't care about your 80-page CES letter, because they're not Mormon because of the evidence to begin with. There's that saying that we've said often on Mormon Stories. You can't deconvert someone with evidence from a position they arrived at through emotion. Does that make sense? You can't deconvert someone with evidence from a position they arrived at emotionally. That would be my answer to Scott. How's that? Margi.
And I'm going to add one last thing sometimes that you see as sort of foundational. So, and it's an emotional foundation, is just there's a reason why I feel like religions kind of create a brokenness in human beings, natural man thought, where we need a savior to save us. And I think oftentimes psychologically we absorb that message of needing someone to make our sins be okay or make our humanness be okay. And we take that in and believe it about ourselves. And so when we innately, and then they have all these models where we're never good enough. So then our existence, we live that time and time again. It's like we can't seem to do all the things they want us to do. We have pain and suffering, and then we're told it's because but are we praying and doing all that? And, inevitably we're not. And I think that reinforces over time this sense of like, I can't do it on my own. I'm like depraved. I'm like, on my own, I've got nothing. And that's a message that I think religions can reinforce, and it allows for religions to thrive, quite frankly, because you grow up thinking, I think I need it. Without it, I'm nothing.
Right. Sorry, John's running over.
Okay. So that's another reason is backfire effect and safety. So what do we go on to the next one? Okay, so the next one is the next reason not to disclose, and this may be all we get through today. We're already an hour in, and we're just on point 1 of lessons and rules for disclosing. The next reason not to disclose is gossip being made a project, being shunned and ostracizing. In other words, there are a lot of downsides to disclosing. Do you want me to talk about this? Okay, so you will be gossiped about in your ward or congregation. You will be gossiped about by your family members. They will all talk about you behind your back. You will be mentioned in a priesthood executive committee or whatever the bishop thing is these days, when the bishop gets the Relief Society president and all the major ward leaders together and they talk about the ward. They will bring you up in PEC. It will get around in your ward. You will be made a project. All of a sudden, people will be bringing chocolate chip cookies to your door saying, we miss you. We heard, you aren't doing so well. They'll be showing extra love to your children if you have children, trying to save them from their wicked parents that have lost their faith. And you'll be made a project. And once they realize you're lost and there's no way of bringing you back, then they will most likely ostracize and shun you and your spouse and your children, potentially. Like, these are all real consequences for most Mormons when you disclose. And so unless you're willing to face that, and if you're not ready to face that, don't disclose. Am I being glib, Margi?
A little. But I think, and this may be variable. Living in Utah, certain areas in Utah, this may be something that is, something weighty to consider, as opposed to if you live in Ohio and there's more space between you, ward buildings. And so that's something just to consider.
All right. Yeah. Gossip and shunning and ostracizing.
We're wired to be external growing up Mormon, I think. So that's something that hurts us initially leaving, is oftentimes it's not unusual to feel a sense of sensitivity that wrong things are being said about us, or people are judging us in ways that we think are incorrect. We're wired for that. We were in a conformity religion where, we were wired around everyone looking the same, thinking the same, and so it is understandable that it comes up and that it's difficult to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Another reason not to disclose is the risk of church discipline. The worst thing you can ever do is be perceived as a threat, potentially by your ward or stake president. And once you start telling neighbors, family, friends, ward members about your loss of faith, there's a very real chance your bishop or stake president will interpret I'll tell this story really quickly. I have my dear friend who has a friend who all they did was they stopped going to church in their Utah ward. And then people started saying, hey, why'd you leave? Why'd you stop coming? And they're like, oh, we don't want to tell you. And they're like, no, really, we want to know. And then he's like, no, I don't want to tell you. I don't want to mess your faith. And they're like, no, really. We really want to know. Will you please tell us? And they're like, okay, well, we read the CES letter. We read the gospel topics essays. And so we lost our faith. Then those members turned around and went and told the bishop that this person was trying to convince them to leave the church. Swear to secular Heavenly Father, that happens. You are at risk, even if you are disclosing to someone you feel safe, that it can, and even if all they do is like go back and tell their wife or their spouse about the conversation they had with you, that spouse might go tell the bishop, which is actually what happened also in this case. And so for all those reasons, unless you're open to potentially being on the other end of excommunication or disfellowship, you need to really think deeply about whether or not you want to disclose. Margi, I know you observed a disciplinary counselor too. Anything you want to add to that one?
Nope, I think that's great.
Okay. Is it fair to say disciplinary counsels aren't fun to be a part of?
They're not fun, no.
What was your action the day after my disciplinary counsel?
I resigned.
Yeah, you resigned from the church.
Yeah.
Because?
For a lot of reasons. We can do an interview about it if you want.
Okay. I'm putting Margi on the spot. All right. I just made my wife officially uncomfortable. All right. A last thing to consider about a last reason to not disclose is that there's another pathway, which is just keeping things ambiguous. So lots of people, I would say half of the active Mormons in the United States in 2021 don't believe the church is true, or don't believe on some fundamental level in major parts of the gospel. But for all the reasons we just mentioned, they just keep it ambiguous. They attend when they have to. They stay out in the foyer. They skip meetings. They show up once a month, whatever they have to do to keep it ambiguous. That's what they do. And there's a valid, I talked to somebody yesterday. If I wanted to become a Canadian citizen, but I valued being an American citizen for whatever reason, I'd rather have two passports than one. So, if you want to just keep your membership because there might be benefits, why disclose and make a big deal about it? Why not just, some would argue, have your cake and eat it too, and just keep your membership, be super ambiguous, keep things private. And, that's one way. And we're actually going to practice or role play how to keep things private and ambiguous in just a second. But those are all the reasons not to disclose.
And I'm going to just say personally, I think if you're in a place where you can kind of do ambiguity, you're probably in a privileged place. That's just something that I want to kind of put out there, meaning that you probably fall in a box of kind of where you have a certain level, like that an LGBTQIA person may not have that same choice or opportunity to remain kind of ambiguous. There are mental health reasons that ambiguity may not be a healthy choice.
Yeah.
That's all.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have now discovered all the reasons not to disclose. It turns out there are, and I know that these sort of answers are going to make some people angry, especially if you're kind of on your kick of like authenticity or truth or like the harm the church causes.
Well, we respect that.
We do.
And support that as well.
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But having said everything that we just spent an hour saying, there are really good reasons to disclose. And so now we're going to do the reasons to disclose. So, Margi, you came up with this one. One really important reason to disclose is boundaries, maintaining healthy boundaries that are being violated. Would you like to describe the situation?
Yeah. I mean, some situations that come to mind would be like a parent that repeatedly wants to have conversations about you not attending church, or have you thought about your children and not being temple married? Or so you find that you're having these, you're having a paradigm show up in relationship where you're getting a ton of ensign articles, and it's really adding stress to your life on a regular basis. You might want to kind of disclose then in a way to kind of boundary. So an example of that would be to just kind of clear up, well, why weren't you at church? We noticed, that the children have been saying that you're not going to church. I talked to Maddie, and Maddie was saying that you guys haven't been going recently. And so can you tell me about that? Can you tell me what's going on? Or at a dinner conversation, people pick up and then all of a sudden you're the focus of a dinner conversation. Or there are always church conversations on Sunday dinner with extended family, and you're feeling completely triggered, and then you start not wanting to go. Or these are all areas where it's starting to affect you in a way that probably is daily. And then you may want to disclose and just say, hey, we have some things going on. And for us right now, those conversations aren't feeling really good. So we'd like to have some space around that for the next little while. I'd like to say no to extra ensign articles for now. I'd like to just not have this be a topic of conversation, but I'd love to talk to you about all these other things.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So, and it's not just, sometimes it's well-intended grandparents. Sometimes it's well-intended siblings. Sometimes it's ward members, church leaders. There are all sorts of people that are potentially going to want to violate your boundaries. And one really clear, clean way to get them off your back, either for you or potentially for your children, if you have children in the home, is just to disclose so that they'll leave you or your kids the F alone. They mean well. They're actually trying to save your souls. They love you, but sometimes you just need to put up a healthy boundary. And again, if you're in a place to do so, boundaries is a really good reason to disclose, right? Okay. The next time or reason to potentially disclose is when your value for authenticity sort of outweighs any of the risks or concerns that you may have, any of the potential negative consequences of disclosing, and including kind of, any concerns you have for your own safety. So if at some point you just feel like, this is the most common scenario where people have to disclose. It's when they can't not disclose. Mm-hmm. It's when they feel like they're about to explode, like it's a matter of integrity, and they're starting to get sick themselves, starting to develop chronic illness, depression, anxiety, just living inauthentically. And that's honestly one of the main you're nodding, Margi. Why are you nodding?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like the cost of filtering. There's so many people that are filtering what they say when they're around certain members of their family. And it's so exhausting. And people just start to shrink, and they feel like they're getting like smaller and smaller and smaller to live in the same space of their life, Yeah. 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 And so I'm kind of going to say the opposite of what I said before. Before I said, if it's unhealthy or unsafe for you to disclose, do not disclose. I will also say, if it's unhealthy for you to stay closeted, to stay hidden, if it's unhealthy for you not to disclose, that's a double negative, then disclose. Let me eliminate the double negative. If it is going to be healthier for you to disclose, then you should disclose. You should not sacrifice your own health and well-being for someone else, even for your mom. And Margi, and Carah, I want to know if either of you guys disagree with me on this. If it's going to upset one of your parents to have you disclose, or if it's going to upset your spouse or upset your kids,
but your own health and mental health and well-being will be sacrificed at the altar of your non-disclosure. You know, it's up to you. It's your personal choice. My opinion is that you should seriously consider disclosing versus suffer with the anxiety and the depression and the eventual chronic illness and eventually thoughts of death by suicide. That is definitely a frequent consequence of continued disclosure, of staying in the closet. LGBTQ people will tell you that, and people in a faith crisis will also tell you that. It can be hazardous to your health and or deadly to go an extended period of time never disclosing. Carah, I know you're kind of at the edge of your seat. What would you like to add?
Yeah, it's a good indication when you can tell I'm taking the mute off. It's like very obvious now, huh? All I wanted to say to that is we're talking about so many issues all coming into one from what we talked about last time about how to talk, how to say it, how not to say it, how to not word vomit out everything that's on your mind. All of these things into one. It's just making me think about the thing that I wish I wouldn't have done when I told my mom is I didn't give her any indication that I was having a faith crisis until I told her I am done. I am leaving. I'm never going back. You know, she had no indication. And so I think the compassionate thing to do would be, yes, for her to know, to put up a boundary that we're on an understanding now. But the whiplash that I think I put my family through, now I look back, feels kind of cruel because it came out of nowhere. They had no idea that I was having any problems. Does that make sense? So I'm just trying to combine all of these ideas into one. About probably would have been smarter. So
yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Margi?
Just that I notice that for women in particular, this is a tough one. Why
is that?
I just think there are lots of reasons. I think within culture, there's still a lot of self-sacrifice involved where women are held up the more they sacrifice themselves and caring for others. So there's, at best sort of a mixed message culturally about that. It's like, have a job, be a professional, but also don't drop the ball on these things that are at home either. And so, but then if you add kind of the Mormon layer, I just feel like from the beginning of our being born I just think we're so relationship identified. I think we're someone's daughter, and then we're someone's wife, and then we're someone's mother, and it's always other. We're always looking after people. We're always kind of feeling responsible and taking care of. And this can be a tough one, and I view it as one of the most important shifts for women transitioning out is this sense of where am I, and where do I fit in, and who's taking care of me? And coming back to yourself, which is why I gave the Thrive Talk Coming Home. It's this idea of we should actually be starting there. And when we start there from a place of taking care of ourselves, everything else is made better in a healthier way. It may not be more comfortable or as comfortable to all those involved, but it's healthier. Because you are actually coming from and being able to give that which you have given to yourself. We can only give what we are able to give to ourselves first. So that's a tough one. I'm just sitting here feeling how difficult and challenging that can be for particularly women coming out of a conservative religion, coming out of Mormonism.
I know that there are going to be many women that are just vibing with you right now, and it's one of the reasons. You have wisdom for everyone, but I just know so many people are grateful for that comment you just made. So thank you. Thanks, Margi. And yeah, is it possible that in Mormonism, there's just this extra burden on women to always be the pleasers, to always be making everybody happy and to self-sacrifice? And I just love that idea that, I just want to reiterate it. Don't sacrifice yourself. The giving tree. The giving tree is the most heinous story in the history of literature because the giving tree ends up a stump. And don't end up a stump. Take care of your own mental health and well-being. And if you need to disappoint people and hurt people for your own health and well-being, especially if you're a woman, do it. Do it for your own health and well-being. You deserve it. You matter. Your health and well-being matters. And at the end of the day, especially for adults, if it's your parents, if it's your grandparents, they are adults. And at the end of the day, it's not your job to take care of your parents or your grandparents' feelings. It's nice if you can be kind, but at the end of the day, don't save your mom or dad or grandparents at the cost of your own health and well-being. Not just for your spouse or your children that may depend on you, but for you, because you matter and you deserve good things.
Yeah, is my camera working? Oh, damn. Look at that, you guys. John just set up his camera. He set up his iPhone.
Never give up. That's the message. Never give up.
This is like a totally different lighting situation now.
know.
Nice job, John.
I know. We do our best. It's better than nothing.
I mean, if the roles were reversed and your camera went out, I don't know if I would try that hard. Gosh, you're so nice. Thanks, John. You guys can see my tea maker in the backyard. You know that I'm backyard. I said backyard behind me.
It is kind of a backyard of sorts.
Yeah, my backyard back there. The only thing I wanted to say is, like, I really hope that people listen and implement a lot of these things, because we're talking about really hard things to do. And I guarantee, like, the weight and the pain of losing your faith and losing these things, it can be replaced by this outrageous, amazing new high, this new belief in yourself and in your own abilities to put up boundaries. And I can say that while my faith crisis and losing my faith and telling my family and all that turmoil was like one of the hardest things I've ever done, on the other side and putting up boundaries and applying like my brain for the first time, it feels like, in my life, in a way that was butting heads with my parents and from my tribe and where I came from. While it was hard, it was one of the most invigorating things I've ever done. And so you get a boost of confidence and you realize your own strength and you move into your own self. And it's really, really, really cool. So all I want to just say to this is, like, if somebody's in this really dark space, to just lend some encouragement that even though it can be a really dark, sunken place, like, if you can apply some of these cool things, like, you can come out on the other side knowing yourself and your strength so much more than you did back there. So
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I do feel like this has been a little bit heavy today, bringing out, I think, a lot of the hard, and there is a lot of hard to it. But there's a reason why we called the original kind of podcast The Gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis, is because there are gifts in it. And I think there is a sense of becoming through a transition away from faith, where you become who you are meant to be, and you create that. You're the one creating that. And you get to differentiate, and yes, you get to start practicing all these healthy things of laying down boundaries and advocating for yourself and deciding how you want to live your life. And there is also a great deal of excitement and empowerment in that process as well.
right on. I was just going to say, I remember my son was born, June 2020. And I left the church summer 2019. So 1 year later, my dad asked me, so are you going to bless the baby at church? And I thought that was such a weird question, because I was like, they know I haven't left it. It's going back to boundaries and just like, you guys already know my stance is clear, you know? So all I said to my dad was like, no, that is a ritual for babies in your church, in your religion. I'm not a member of that religion, so it wouldn't make sense for me to do that type of ceremony for my son, but we'll find something else meaningful to do. And my dad was like, kind of like taken aback that I was just like, bam, and no, right? And I was like, confidence. I was like, that wasn't so hard, was it?
Just so true. You're like, look at me be a grown-ass woman. Look at me go.
Yeah, and you just do that enough times. And then you start podcasting, and now look at like, you just do it enough times. You just like, yeah. Which was really funny, because now for some weird reason, my parents are actually really proud of me. That like they're like, Carah, you're so articulate. I wish, this is not a podcast about this.
They believe in the church, and
they're
so
weirdly proud of me.
Stories.
I know. I don't want to talk too much about the Book of Mormon Evidence Conference that I went to this past weekend, but my parents are weirdly proud of me and what I do for Mormon Stories and working for John DeLynn. I don't know what makes sense in their brain, but they're like, Carah, you're so articulate and we're bragging about you to all these people. And I was like, I don't think that you should be bragging. I don't know if these people like really, do you know how these people clash? Like we're on kind of polar opposites here, but like it's kind of cool. The more that I've stood up for myself and grown into my new voice since leaving the church, like they're weirdly proud of it, even though we have totally different beliefs. So that's, again, just like, if that sound resonates with anyone, just give it a go. Just really try to like step into your new authentic self. Yeah. Because it feels like miracles are happening. Like within my relationship with my parents, even though we have totally different beliefs. It's kind of crazy and cool.
Yeah. And that's a great thing to remember too, is just this idea that you may be in a space right now that really what you're seeing is a lot of loss, and you're experiencing a lot of, let's just say, deaths, these little deaths of life. And that's valid. You know, there are spaces and times where this transition process may be bringing you a feeling of just like, I'm having a lot of loss. What I've found is there's almost always a sense of partnering where something is being born. There are also births, bit by bit, that you can see, little things being planted, little things that didn't exist before. And sometimes it can be helpful to just be on the lookout for those things, because I think the losses can be very evident, right? You feel slammed by those. The births can be a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more subtle and harder to see, but they're there too.
Love it. I love it. All right. This is so fun. All right. So now we're on to the fourth potential reason to disclose. And what I wrote there is the idea of altruism, which is wanting to help other people. And this is a tricky one because it has to be balanced with compassion and safety, other people's safety and yours, and
ego.
Yep. And all those things. And it is a legitimate, you know, I guess I try and be, and maybe all three of us try and be, living examples of this idea that there are legitimate reasons to educate people about the truth about the Mormon Church and the harm about the Mormon Church, because there are people who, if they knew the truth about the church, they might either engage it in different ways or they might leave it. They might pay less tithing. They might give less effort to it. They might protect their children in a different way from the church. There's all sorts of different ways that people might make different decisions if they either had the truth about the church or knew about the harm the church was causing LGBT people or women or youth or whatever. And so part of the mission of the Open Stories Foundation is to help promote informed consent within Mormonism, and to help discriminate minorities. So to alleviate LGBTQ suffering, to prevent, youth, young women, young men from being overly sexualized or, taught toxic masculinity, to prevent teachings of racism that are inherent in the Book of Mormon and the Book of Moses and in Mormonism, to promote the status of women so that they're not second-class citizens. You know, there are all sorts of ways the church harms people, not to mention pressuring people to give time and money without full informed consent. So if you decide one reason to disclose, and this is probably the most common reason people want to disclose, and that's why I'm hesitant to even mention it, because people can want this at the expense of compassion and other people's safety and their own. But altruism is one main reason people want to disclose, and it's a legitimate reason. Carah.
Yeah.
Oh, were you wanting to say something?
I guess. I mean, if I'm holding this in my hand, that means I'm off mute.
Oh,
but I mean, I definitely think you said that very well. Okay. Of needing to balance things. And I mean, I think everyone in their heads, we can have real life ramifications to the church's teachings where like 1 + 1 is equaling 2. Where like in, a certain family, let's just call it mine. I don't know. Maybe there's some trans individuals, let's say, and very directly the church's teachings about families and gender identity is the very thing that is causing suicidality in a trans family member, and it's a clear as day, connection. And if I can get the family member to be a little bit more nuanced in their beliefs and work around the edges, that's my altruistic thing, because I want my trans family member to stick around, Like, I'm not trying to take away someone's faith, but I'm trying to have people have a lot more compassion and nuanced belief on these areas. But if somebody's just going to throw the CS letter at somebody's face, we were talking about the Backfire Effect, that's not the way to go about it. But it is this altruistic out of compassion for people who are being harmed by the people that I love. People I love that are in the church can still do harm to people that I love that are outside the church. So it's balancing how to go about this in a smart way. That's what I have to say.
That's right. Strategic way.
That's great. Thanks, Carah. Yeah, I'll just add that for if you had asked me, I stayed active in the church for 13 years after I lost my faith, and people are kind of blown away by that. If you had asked me during most of that time why I stay in the church, one of the main reasons, was to help people in it. And I felt like Mormon Stories could be more successful if I was still a member of the church. But I also enjoyed it myself. But also, I didn't know of a way to raise healthy, happy kids outside of Mormonism. And I was terrified that I would have no framework to help my kids be happy, healthy kids without the church. And, that's how I felt at the time. Something that's been really profound for me are these recent Mormon Stories podcast episodes. I think Lauren was one. And I think yesterday with Thomas and Cece, these younger people who are having babies, who as soon as they hold that baby in their hands for the first time, they say, I can't raise this baby. I can't raise this beautiful, innocent child in this church anymore. Ethically, morally, I'm not going to do that to them. And I'd never thought about that before. And so, that's just another way of saying that. And I'll say one more thing as well. Confirmation bias is true. And there's a lot of people that don't value evidence, that don't want to hear about your faith crisis, and who won't read that letter if you write it. That's all true. And there are people, and maybe it's a minority, but there are people who do value evidence within Mormonism, who do want to know, and they just simply don't have the information yet. And just yesterday in the podcast, we had several people write in that they didn't learn about the CES letter until 2000 or 2001, 5 or 6 years into the existence of the CES letter. The majority of Mormons have never heard of Mormon Stories Podcast, and we're in our 16th year of production. The Mormon bubble is so strong that most Mormons have never heard of any of this stuff, let alone the Gospel Topics essays or any of the factual church history. So there are going to be people who want to know and would want to know, and they just need somebody to reach out and tell them. And for all the pain of coming out, as disclosing as someone who's lost their faith, one of the hidden nuggets of joy, kind of like, this is almost like a missionary phrase, like if there be only one, precious shall be your place in heaven if just you convert just but one person to the gospel. Sometimes by coming out, you will have at least one or a few family members who love and trust you and who value evidence, who will become aware of the problems about the church, become aware of the history, and or become aware of the potential harm that will be caused by their continued membership. And they'll become enlightened, they'll wake up, and they'll take control of their lives. That's why I do Mormon Stories Podcast. That's why lots of other people do what they do. And so you shouldn't expect that anybody's going to care or respond, but there will be a few who do, and those people will probably always feel indebted to you for your love and compassion and for the sacrifice you make by disclosing. So that's a reason to disclose. Margi?
One thing, can I go back to your parenting idea where you were talking about raising healthy kids, that how could you do that without the church? And I think I just wanted to make that connection, that it goes back to the thought when I was answering, what was his name's question? What was his name? Anyway, when we were,
Scott?
Scott's question about, and that unworthy model, that deficit model of our kids are depraved, see? And we as parents are programmed in the church that we are wholly responsible for them, like for their actions, for their choices. And so we're looking at them like, you're an empty cup. Like, we need help. We need help giving you morals because look how, like, we know you're depraved. So we just need all the help we can get. We need the church and we need these magazines and we need to be doing, and it creates this anxiety and frenzy all around scarcity, around their goodness. And that's just something that's very interesting when religion creates a problem that then only they can solve, basically. And I just really, I don't believe that anymore. I look at my kids and it makes me feel sad that for so long, that was the way I thought of them. And now I look at them and it's strange because we have 2 older children and then there's a little bit of a gap and then we have 2 younger, and we parented 2 teens and amidst the excommunication, but mostly in the church until they left home. And then we have 2 younger ones that were teens and not parented in the church. And the connection, we had to rehabilitate our relationship with our older 2 to connect in a way that we were able to foster with our younger 2 without religion, without that layer of seeing them as like, you're going to get into trouble. You've got no virtue. You've got no inherent ethics and values. And so, you're just a mess waiting to happen. And we got to get you there on Sunday. And how are you? And there's just so much anxiety and that goes into that, as opposed to just looking at them as, worthy, inherently worthy humans. And from there, connecting with them as they are. And what do you want? And what are you feeling? And how are you connecting with school or not? And, how can we show up for you? Or like, do you need space? Or it's just a profoundly different experience that having had those 2 and being able to actually compare and contrast them, I really challenge that belief. And I think it does a lot of harm.
Love it. Thank you, sweetie. That's powerful stuff. Okay, so altruism is is a third of 4 reasons we have to disclose. And then the 4th reason we have to disclose, which is probably the most important reason of all, ladies and gentlemen, and gender non-binary people, I now present to you what Margi and I, and maybe even Carah, believe is the most important reason to disclose. And that is emotional intimacy with loved ones, people that have earned our trust. Now, Margi, this was yours. And so if it's okay, I'm going to have you start this one and then I'll chime in. Is that okay?
Yes. And I think we're going to touch on it a little bit later as well with the who segment. So I'm going to keep mine short. But what I would say is there are times where we have people in our lives who have earned the right to hear our vulnerability or some of those kind of tougher things where if we were to share it, it will actually build intimacy in the relationship, as opposed to if we don't share it and then it eventually comes out, or then it can feel like a loss or a bit of I don't want to say necessarily a betrayal, but I guess it could, but sort of like why didn't you trust me with that? Or why didn't you feel comfortable sharing that? And being able to really show up in this, all the beauty of what comes from when we're vulnerable with each other and we hold it and we, love and show up for each other in that space. It's like a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, amen. And maybe I'll say it a different way as well, just to kind of give you backup. And what I would say there is that one of the biggest things you need to be mindful of as you've gone through a faith crisis is not making your loved ones feel betrayed. They are likely going to feel like you've betrayed them anyway, just by losing your faith. Because if, for example, if you're in a marriage, that temple marriage where both of you believed and you lose your faith, they're going to feel like you betrayed them by losing your faith. They're going to say you broke the deal. Your parents may feel betrayed. Your siblings may feel betrayed. Your ward members. If you've been a leader in your ward or stake, all the other people who depended on you are going to feel betrayed. That is likely to happen. But if we're dealing with the spouse particularly, you don't want to add to existing feelings of betrayal also the extra baggage of them feeling like you lied and hid things from them. I have seen marriages end, or I've seen people in faith crisis dig even bigger holes for themselves as they hid their faith crisis from the people they loved most. And not only then did they have to manage the mixed faith relationship, they had to rebuild the trust of the person who felt betrayed that you hid something from them or lied to them or kept it from them for too long. This usually happens when you a man or woman will go on a business trip and start taking off their garments while away, or they secretly stop paying their tithing, or they're reading and studying all these books and they're discovering all these problems and they keep it from their loved ones who they should be trusting and loving and being fully honest with. So if you are in a relationship where your loved one might feel betrayed by you not disclosing to them, then I highly recommend disclosing, or you risk something potentially not very good happening. So that is, that really, I think, and the other part of that is your children. So check this out, brother and sister and non-binary friends. The last thing I ever want to do as a parent, and I thought about this as I had lost my faith and I was raising my kids in the church. I thought, wow, why don't I just not tell my kids? Let them enjoy all the benefits of being raised in the church. And then when they're 30, I can tell them I lost my faith. Then I envision the day where my kids, let's just say they get married. Let's say they go to seminary, they cave to the pressure, they go on a mission, they go to BYU, they get married in the temple, and then they learn that the church wasn't true, or they realize that they're gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender, whatever the case may be, or they just sacrifice educational opportunities or a career that they would have had. They would have made very different choices. They would have had kids later, or maybe not had kids at all. Whatever the reasons are, the last thing you want, trust me, is your kid coming to you when they're 30 or 40, their life is blown up, they're in the midst of a divorce, kids are involved, and your kids are saying to you, oh, wait, you knew all along that the church wasn't true and you didn't tell me? And I made all these crucial life decisions based on information that you withheld from me? I don't think you want that. So for those reasons, for the people who are under your care, for the people who rely on you for as a matter of trust and of confidence, especially for a spouse or children, I think you owe it to them. That's my opinion. You may feel differently. I feel like you owe it to them to disclose. Carah.
The only thing I want to add to that is that's so true. I'm glad that I kind of went through a faith deconstruction. I don't care if people stay in the church, but I think people should confront the problems with the church, on one hand, the harm it does, and then the truth claims of the church. I think every Mormon should go through, deconstruct, and then if you want to reconstruct a more nuanced version of the church and how you're going to make it work, I encourage people to do that. But I do think it's in everyone's best interest to come face to face with these issues. So the way that I just was kind of thinking about what John just said is I wish that I would have deconstructed earlier. Like my sister left the church and she didn't want to tell me anything. And I wish that she would have. And my husband, he was, speaking of emotional intimacy, he went probably an entire year listening to Mormon Stories. And I was like, what are you listening to? You know, we were like renovating a house and he would be like, oh, I'm listening to this. This is kind of interesting. But I was kind of like, I don't know about that John DeLynn, you know. And so I wish he would have shared with me and had the emotional intimacy, but he was too afraid that I would have, because I think I said something stupid when I was like newlywed, that like if you ever left the church or you weren't a priesthood holder, I would divorce you. I said something stupid like that I had no idea I said, that was still in his head. So he was petrified of being emotionally intimate about the things he was learning, and he was going through his own personal, quiet deconstruction. And so I think to John's point of like a smart reason to disclose something to a loved one, even though it has to be weighed and has to be smart, I personally wish that the people who left the church around me would have shared things with me earlier, even if it meant I just kind of was more nuanced, didn't take things so seriously. I probably would have done a better job of like loving gay people earlier, you know, like that's not a bad thing to do, you know, just like coming to a more nuanced perspective. in my early 20s instead of late 20s. You know, that's kind of how I think of it.
That's super valid. And I don't think you're alone in that either. I've heard so many people say the same. Like, I wish I had known earlier. I wish I had found out earlier. So I'm just going to say I really love what you said and that you added children, because I also, I think anytime you're with close people and they're observing behavior, we just don't want to create patterns of lying. I just don't find that to be a great template for healthy relationships. So if you have a child that's like, I've noticed, why is mommy not going to church? Or, you know, if you're in kind of a mixed faith situation and one person is starting not to go to church, and you have that, you know, person saying, oh, I don't feel well, or I don't feel, kids tend to, over time, they can sniff these things out. So being able to kind of create a template for healthy relationships overall, and not creating patterns of sort of lying, evasiveness, and how you disclose and what you disclose, as we've kind of talked about a little bit, you can do a lot with that. You can choose how much you say, how, you know, to what level it becomes disruptive or dramatic or scary. There are a lot of tools and things you can work with to convey that in ways that I think for a child it wouldn't be particularly disruptive.
And actually, we have an entire series on the Gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis about how to come out to your children after you have a crisis of faith. So we can put a link to that also specific episode in the show notes. There is an episode on coming out to your kids, and it's like 3 hours of just coming out to your kids. And so we want to add that to the show notes. I'm going to add also, Carah, on top of what you said about Aaron, I cannot tell you how many couples I've met where the wife and the husband were both going through a faith crisis, but were both afraid to tell the other, sometimes for years. And then finally one is like about to not want to live anymore, and they come out to their spouse terrified at what the consequence might be. And the spouse was like, me too.
Yeah, at the same time.
And I've seen this happen with parent and child relationships.
Yeah.
I've seen this happen in sibling relationships. Now, don't get your hopes up. That's not going to be the norm, but it happens way more often than you think. And for sure, if and when you come out publicly, there will be cousins or aunts and uncles, nephews, nieces, missionary companions. I mean, Carah, when you did your Mormon Stories episode, did you find a bunch of people come out of the woodworks?
Yeah, especially my family. My parents are converts, so not my family as much, but my husband's family for sure. Crisco Bike is always in the comments. That's my husband's cousin. So just tons of people came out of the woodwork, and I love reconnecting with people that we don't have. I mean, normally you don't have anything to talk about, but now with Faith Crisis stuff, you have endless amounts of stuff to talk about. Every single person that I've gone to high school with in Provo that's lost their faith has probably DM'd me, you know? So like that's kind of fun, like to reconnect with people. And people feel less alone. I feel less alone. You feel like you're less crazy and stuff. So yeah, like John was saying, like, don't get your hopes up necessarily, but like you will be a little bit invigorated and a little bit surprised, I think, by how many people are sharing in the same struggles, and it'll make you feel less alone. So
yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I am going to call an audible here, as they say in the football biz. We still want to do role play because that's part of the part of this series that people really like most. We've only got 15 minutes before we hit the 2-hour mark. And so I'm going to call an audible. There's going to be a part 3 to this series, which I don't think is horrible. I think that this is such an intense and in-demand topic. This is probably, like I say, the number one topic I ever get. So we need to do at least 2 more hours on it. Is that okay, Margi Boo?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay. Carah, is that all right?
Yeah, can I just read one comment really quick? So H. Benduzula, that sounds really good with my like puberty rasp here too, gave $50 in the super chat. I just want to thank them for that real quick. And Melissa mentioned, is truth more important or is comfort? My faith crisis was the most painful, most difficult thing I ever went through. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. However, I am so grateful I went through it. And I totally agree with that as well. I remember thinking to myself, crying on the phone to my sister once, like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. So that's balancing the compassion and stuff, but also it's so complicated. It's so messy. I think that's what the entire too long didn't read of this this podcast is about. It's messy. It's difficult. Just lead with compassion, lead with empathy, and for all sides, for people in the church, outside of the church, people being harmed by the church, people who benefit from the church. Just be smart. Take everything into consideration when going into these conversations, and then know that for yourself, at the end of the day, take care of yourself.
Yes.
Find new tools to rebuild your life. And thank you, Melissa, for that comment.
Yeah.
Love it.
And compassion for yourself too. You've never done this before. And for many of us, we can feel like snails without a shell. It can feel really overwhelming. We can feel really tender. And so having some compassion for yourself as you go about it. And I think it does tend to get better. So if I can just kind of send that message too.
Yeah, I remember Sam Shelley in a Self on the Shelf video that I found early on in my faith crisis. I remember she said early on, you will do it wrong. And it made me feel so much better.
Yeah.
Of you will mess it up. You will do it wrong. Accept that to begin with. And then think about how to do it less wrong, knowing that you're already going to probably do it wrong. So be compassionate with yourself. You've never done this before. This is a whole different terrain of coming out to family and friends. This is a whole different part of your brain that's being operated. It's probably never been tapped into before. You're growing into a new self. So yes, be super compassionate for yourself while you're trying to balance these things. It's overwhelming for sure. But guess what? There's totally a community here that's done it, that's in the trenches with you. We got your back. That's right. And I also wanted to ask, are we going to be doing a Q&A at the end, or do you want me just to integrate the comments as I find them?
So I'm torn because we agreed we wouldn't go over 2 hours. And I just saw a couple really great questions or comments, and we really want to do a little role play. So let's do a little role play. And then if there's time, we'll answer a question or two. Sure. But we'll also, Carah, if you don't mind, well, let me just ask this. Anyone who's watching or listening, if you've got a comment or a question, go to the episode on Mormon Stories Podcast called Telling Believing Family and Friends When You've Lost Your Faith. It's 8 episodes back, and post it as a comment. And then what we'll do on one of the follow-up episodes is we'll remember some of these questions or comments, and we'll address them as part of the series. I just don't want to finish this episode without doing some role play.
And if we have enough questions, we could probably even do a Q&A episode.
Yeah, we'll do a Q&A. We will.
If there are enough, know that that's something we can do.
Yep. Plus, I have to always tease Carah that we know that Carah loves role play because she told us that on Mormon Stories.
Yeah.
True?
Brilliant.
Yeah, we'll just circle back to it.
Time and time again, because it never gets old.
Endlessly.
Apparently.
The more I overshare, the more fodder we'll have to talk about.
Okay, so we're going to role play 2 scenarios really quick. The first scenario, and the reason why we role play is because people really struggle to know what words to use. And so role playing helps you get a sense for actually how to host a conversation. So we thought of at least 2 role plays. If you guys want to recommend other quick role plays, we will pay attention to it. But the first role play we're going to do today is a ward member who is saying to you, this is a common scenario where a ward member is trying to dig about why you have stopped coming to church, and they want to dig. And let's just say that you're not ready to disclose anything yet, but they're trying to pry by asking about you. And so I'm going to be the ward member, the annoying, well-intended, believing ward member. And Margi, you're going to model a boundaried response. How does that sound?
Okay.
Do you want to model a boundaried response?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I will give it my all.
Okay. So this question's always maddening because, it's not like you moved. If you lose your faith, they know where to find you. So when they say I'm missing you, it's kind of silly because they pretty much always know where you live and they could visit you at any time. But anyway, having said that, I am now going to play we're at the grocery store and I'm bumping into you and you haven't been to church in 3 months. All right? You ready? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, Margi.
Hey there.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. How about you? How's life been?
It's good. Yeah, it's good.
Great.
Hey, I just had to say, we've really missed you at church, man. We've missed you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but like we've missed you. Like it's been weird not seeing you there. Like, is everything okay? Like, is there anything like we could do to help?
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, things are going pretty well. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, but like I was just wondering, like, what's going on? Is there something going on that we should know about? Because we love you so much and we just want to help you. Is there anything we can do to help?
Oh, I don't think I need any help right now, but I really appreciate the offer. How has life been for you? I would probably redirect at that point, or I might move on. So a redirect would be like, how's Mike been doing? How's the family? What have you guys been up to? If I wanted to continue with this person, if I like this person well enough, then you can redirect. At this point, I would probably say, I'd probably doing body cues where I'm pushing my cart and kind of getting further and further as we're repeating. But part of holding a boundary is also just repeating. Yeah. It's one of the best things you can do.
Yeah. So I'll say, we're all great here. Like we've been loving church and we had a great lesson on Sunday about, the covenant path and how important it is to stay on the covenant path. That's been amazing. And honestly, like we've missed your kids too. Like your kids, we haven't seen them in primary or in young men's or young women's. We would just love is there anything we can do to kind of get you guys back to church?
Oh, so we're back, even though I said, okay. So a really insistent person, I'd say, one thing I like to do is repeat what they've said. So like, I haven't seen you at church. I'll say, yeah, we haven't been at church. Yeah, thanks so much for the interest. Have a great day. And I would leave. Or,
you're a little more abrupt than me. I would have a hard time doing that.
Well, I don't mind people feeling a boundary. I don't mind. So I like to boundary with warmth if I can. So I'll start with warmth. I don't always have to have warmth if the person is disrespecting the boundary, but I like to pair a boundary with warmth. So I'm smiling at her. I have a fair amount of patience, but you don't have to. Like there are no rules here, And if it's a person who is not your friend, you definitely don't have to be overly warm. I just like that pairing of like, you're going to receive a boundary from me. I'm going to be warm. And it may feel like a boundary because that's a good lesson for you that you actually are overstepping.
Yeah. And I think we're taught that it's our job to help make everything okay for everybody else within Mormonism. Like our job is to make sure no one else feels bad. Our parents can't feel bad. We don't want to offend our ward member. We don't want to make a bishop or someone feel uncomfortable. And I think what I learned from Brene Brown is that sometimes you do boundaries because you love people, not because you hate them. You do boundaries because you want to have a chance of saving the relationship, not because you want to ruin it. And so sometimes a boundary may feel shocking to somebody. It may make them sad or feel off-put, but the truth is sometimes that can be the only way to have the relationship even survive. Is that true?
That's right, because it limits the damage and the exposure of this interaction.
Yeah, it's like good fences make good neighbors. So I'd like to drop back into role play one more time. I'm going to be more persistent.
So can you be a new person or you're the same person?
Yeah, I just want you to model instead of just driving your shopping cart away, I want you to, are you smiling? Carah?
I just have a joke.
Okay.
Because it's like, that's not uncommon, like living in Salt Lake, that like around the corner, there's another person from church who also is like, oh, hey, you haven't been at church a while. So if you say no to one person from your ward, there's another one at the grocery store who's around the corner as well. It's just, that's the nature of living in Utah sometimes.
So I do, in short of you just walking off with your shopping cart while they're like talking to you.
No, I created a boundary and held it first.
And I want to just take it a little bit further.
Okay, go.
So you asked me about my husband or whatever, my spouse, and I just want to come back and I just want to say, okay, so yeah, my husband's great or my wife's great, but we've really missed you, and particularly we've missed your children. We really love your children. We love having them in young women's and young men's. Little Johnny is so cute in primary. We miss his voice, and we're just really worried that they're not getting the love and the help they need. So is there anything what's going on? Can you just tell me what's happened? Like, I'm really curious is there something that's caused you guys to no longer come?
So I really feel your love and concern, and thank you for that. I feel like I've answered this a number of times now around what's happening. And all I can say to you is there's nothing really that's happening with us other than we're not attending church right now. So I really I'm glad to hear that everyone's well, that your husband is doing well. And I kind of have to go now, but I'm wishing you well. Thanks.
Why
Thanks.
would anyone not attend church? Like,
Now I would. I've already said goodbye. This is the thing. There are people that want to engage with
Margi
you.
taps out, man.
I did this for like years in Logan. There are people that they don't mind. Here's my new favorite boundary phrase from holistic psychologists that I'm teaching my children right now. And I just love it. I'm really surprised you feel comfortable asking me that. Just let it lie. Like, just let it float in the air.
Let's practice that. Okay,
I'm really surprised you feel comfortable asking me that.
I'm going to be the annoying word person. So is there anything that's happened in your marriage that's caused you guys to stop coming to church? Are your kids okay? Is there something wrong?
Wow, like I really hear your concern, Brent, in that. And that feels kind of personal. I'm really surprised you feel comfortable asking me that.
That is so non-Mormon of an answer.
And this is why boundaries are like a new language for people. Self-advocating is like something we never saw modeled. We've never done for most of us. Yeah. So it is a skill. It's like a language, but like any other skill, it can be learned. Any other language, you can practice and learn it. And what I like about it is it's information for the person if they want to receive it, but it also keeps you healthy. It keeps you in a place of empowerment as opposed to every time you run into someone in the store, really, you're going to feel thrashed by whatever comes out of their mouth. Like, that's a hard way to live. That's no way to live, especially in Utah, where the population is such it is and the percentage of Mormons, right? Yeah. Okay. I feel strongly about it because to me, I work a lot with women and caretakers, and this is something that comes up all the time. And it is such an exhausting way to live.
Yeah. I love it. I want to extend the role play just a tiny bit. Will you now be the annoying ward member? And I'm going to tell you how I would answer an overly persistent person. So let's just flip it around. You're going to be the busybody ward member.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try and model how I would respond. Is that okay? Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've seen you. It must have been, it feels like even months since you've been at church, and boy, what's been going on?
Oh, hey, how's it going? It's so good to see you. I've missed you too. And yeah, honestly, everything's great. Like, Margi's great. The kids are great. And things have honestly never been better. So it's so kind of you to ask. We've missed you too. Swing by if you're ever walking down the road and you see us, we'd love to talk. Like, we love you guys and we miss you guys too. And anytime you guys want to talk, just let us know. Everything's great.
But you've disappeared is the thing. It's just like we never see what has happened. There must have been something that has changed because we used to see you and now we don't ever.
You know what? Everything is great. Like, literally things have never been better. I'm doing really well at work. I'm traveling some. Margi's doing great. My kids are awesome. And there's literally nothing wrong. In fact, things are better than they've ever been.
But the change though, I mean, just the change of
what change?
You attending and now we don't see you at all. There's that, that change and your kids aren't going to church anymore. And we care about, I'm used to seeing them there in primary, Johnny and Betsy and, Logan there. And, have you thought about your kids?
Yeah. It's so that, I can tell you really care about me and my family. And I really, really appreciate that. And I just want to say that we're totally fine. Everything is great. And I can tell you really are concerned about us that we're not attending. And all I just want to say is just, everything's great. We're doing our thing. Right now, we've stepped a little bit back from the church, not because there's any problem, but we're just kind of thinking through stuff and figuring stuff out. And that might be weird or hard for you, but everything, I'm just telling you, we're happier than we've ever been, and we're doing great.
Yeah, you've stepped back. That's it. Be careful,
Aww.
John. I feel like once you do that, my uncle thought for a while he was having questions, and and their family, what their family went through, it was terrible. It was just, I don't think you want this, John. I don't think you want to step back. I'm not sure that you're thinking of your kids, and you may be thinking it's one thing now, but I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've seen it in my own family, and it does not play out well.
Can I just say, you are so kind to care so much about us. I can feel your love. I'm channeling my inner Leah Young here. I can feel your love. I know it's sincere. I really appreciate it. And I just have to tell you, Margi and I are happier than we've ever been. Our kids are doing great. And I just thank you so much for your concern. I'll note it, but we're doing great, and I wish you well. Maybe we'll come back and visit. Right now, the best thing you can do for us right now is not make us a project and not even worry about us. Just give us the space to kind of just work through stuff. And that would be the best gift. The last thing we want to feel is like people are gossiping about us or judging us. So if you care about us, really care about us, and if you want to even have a hope that we'll ever come back, I think I just want to say that the kindest thing you can do for us is just to love us as we are, not as members, not as people who attend, but just love us and accept us as human beings and not gossip about us, and just treat us like you love us and care about us for who we are, not directly tied to our relationship with the church. Could you do that for us and for our kids mostly? Is there a way you could just love us unconditionally and not have all this factor into it?
I just can't imagine. I can't imagine you saying that you're happier than ever. I can't imagine that being true with you, you stepping away. I know you think you're doing the right thing. I know you do. It's clear you think you're doing the right thing, but I know I've seen it. And so best of luck to you, John.
Love you. It's good to see you. Take care, and swing by anytime. You guys are awesome, and take care.
Okay. Can I just say, your approach is so you, and I could not live my life in Logan or like doing that with as often as I saw people. My whole day would be talking and explaining to people who actually I don't have a relationship with anymore. I'd be like, I'm talking, more of my time is being put into grocery store and whatever, dry cleaners and the people but that is so you. Well, and for some people that situation, they could use that for someone in the church, for example, who they liked a little bit more or who they had. So I like that we are a foil.
Yeah, we can
different approaches.
We can differentiate and see things differently. As you mentioned, I am the great over discloser. And so for me, if they're going to really get in my craw, so to speak, then I'm going to have the conversation because it's kind of fun for me. I'm not going to try and like dash their world, but I'll engage. I have to admit, I take a slightly perverse pleasure in like having that type of conversation with somebody.
That was a wee bit clear.
and frankly, I couldn't do Mormon Stories Podcast probably if that weren't true. Carah, what are you laughing about over there?
Just you're like saying that you're the king of over disclosure. I was like, yeah, look at what you do for a living. Like, yeah. Oh, somebody wants to talk to me at the grocery store. Like, yeah, I'll engage.
Bring it.
Even if like my peas in the frozen aisle are like melting in my cart. Like, I think, John, you would spend a half an hour explaining yourself and being like very articulate. I just was going to read a comment from Jared that said that people are really enjoying these role plays, by the way. This is my favorite part. here and at home. Anyway, and they said about the part, like, I think we can also talk about what's working for us. We miss your kids. They need a good foundation. And you can reply with like, actually, we've been doing X thing that's been working for us really well. Going back to what we started this podcast with, like, what is working for us?
Great idea.
Like, oh, you've been missing us at church. Do you think it'd be an appropriate time to tell them, like, oh, we haven't been there because we're doing other things that work for us on Sundays now?
What you can say is,
idea.
Yeah, my kids are, you know what? I'll tell you something exciting about my kids. They're going to be attending the Thrive Conference on November 14th, where Jesse Funk is going to be doing an Especially for Truth sort of Thrive youth-focused event. I'm kidding. I'm teasing a little bit. Actually, that's true. If you have youth who need community and support, Thrive November 14th, they can register at thrivebeyondreligion.com and attend an event catered to youth. That's going to be amazing. But anyway, I was joking.
But you provided a script right there, a valuable script. Yes, I think those words could work amazingly well when they say, whatever, we miss your kids, that you can say, hey, we've been, speaking of our kids, we've been doing this and this with them, and it seems to be working well, and that's why you haven't seen us as much. Brilliant.
Thanks, Jared, for that comment.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, one last role play, and then we're going to end for today, and we're going to do a part 3 and maybe a part 4 of this series. So, Margi, I'm going to play the role of a bishop, Mormon bishop. You're going to play the role of needing to ask to be released from your calling.
Okay.
And I'm not going to want you to be released. And then once I begrudgingly accept you being released, I'm going to try and find out why. And your job is to just smile, but also you don't want to be perceived as a threat.
Okay, so I value...
You're in the scenario now of valuing that the bishop... So
maybe I have a mixed faith, like my husband still goes or something?
Or you would, you live in Utah and you don't want your kids to be shunned. So you don't want to tell him about the CES letter. You don't want to over-disclose. And you want him to leave feeling good, even if it means you're going to have to bite your tongue and smile and repeat something over and over again. But I'm going to challenge you not to do the shopping aisle thing where you just bolt with your shopping cart. I want you to leave me feeling good.
Hey, I gave you 3 boundaries before I moved my cart.
Okay.
That was quite generous.
Well, I'm going to be an overbearing bishop, and I'm going to challenge you with responding in a way where I feel good at the end of our conversation.
Knowing that I can't hold how you feel.
Sure.
Okay.
Just within reason.
This is going to be a challenge for me because
you don't suffer
as a
fools.
female, having been in offices, like, I don't mind making bishops a little bit uncomfortable. So, but I'll try.
Margi, sweet little Margi doesn't suffer fools. And that is one thing about Margi. I'm like waving to the person that was mean to us, and Margi just kind of like, she's not overly nice to people who have hurt our feelings.
Yeah, or I don't extend like, oh, come by, you can see us, because I'm like, I don't want to see you in any form. I'm not inviting another way for you to come see us.
I was just laughing. I love how Margi is like, I don't mind making bishops uncomfortable. It's like bishops' MO is like making other people uncomfortable. So it's like, let's dish it out a little bit.
It's their job description. All right, well, we'll see how you do. Is that okay, Margi?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see how I do. Are you assessing me? Are you going to decide how well I do? Okay.
No, I have unconditional positive regard. Yeah. Okay. So, hey, Sister Delynn, so good to see you.
Yes.
What'd you want to talk about?
Well, first off, thanks for meeting with me. I know you're probably busy.
Oh, my pleasure. This is why I exist. So I'm happy to help you. How can I help?
Yeah.
I hope everything's okay. Is everything okay?
Yeah. Things are going pretty well.
Well, I just want to say that we just love having you in primary. It's been so great. You've been so good with the kids, and we just can't thank you enough for your service in primary. It's amazing.
I really appreciate that, and I've really enjoyed my time in primary, and I really have enjoyed being with the kids the last year and a half. Giving lessons and getting to know them. So that's been a pleasure. I did want to let you know, however, about a change that I'm feeling. And I just kind of feel like the timing with our family and some things going on, it's going to be really helpful for me to be released from my calling now.
Oh my gosh, what's wrong? What's going on?
Oh, there's nothing in particular that's wrong. It's just, I think, with the timing and some things that are going on with regard to kind of time management and kind of where we find ourselves, we just are, it would be a I've thought about it, and I feel like it's a good time to be released for me.
Well, Sister Dylan, I really appreciate you coming.
Of course.
And I appreciate your honesty with me. But I just want you to know you can trust me. And I will, I pray regularly. Like I take my position as bishop very seriously. And I just want you to know you can tell me I care about you and your family. And so I want you to know you can tell me when something is wrong. I want to know because I want to be able to help you.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really do. No, it's really just a timing thing, but thanks.
So in my mind as a bishop, I'm stepping out of the role play. I'm like, okay, is her husband looking at porn? Is he cheating on her? Is she cheating on him? Are they bankrupt? Like, did someone lose their job? Okay, so I'm going to step back into role play. So, is your husband doing okay? Is there anything I should know about what's going on there?
Oh, yeah, he's doing, but you could ask him too. But yeah, he's doing great.
Okay.
Again, really, there's nothing going on. This is more of a timing thing, balance of family type of situation, and I'm needing to rebalance. So really a timing thing. So yeah, so if we could talk about the releasing, what would really work for me with the releasing and what I have to offer is I kind of feel like I could probably show up for 2 to 3 more lessons. Let's just say 3 more lessons I can teach. And after that, I'm going to have to say you can't count on me for that anymore. So I did feel like I wanted to let you know, I'm going to step out now. This is a really important part because otherwise, by the time people hit the bishop's office, they've usually been suffering for a long time. Like it's not easy for many people to kind of make this move is what I'd say. And so by the time you get here, most people are exhausted, feeling frayed, feeling overwhelmed. And so what can happen is the bishop has a sense of, and this isn't intentional, but there's a sense of power around, you don't know when you're going to get released. It's not up to you when you get released. It could be 2 months from now. They can start saying, we don't have a person. We're still looking. And then you're in someone else's hand. So I'm making an intervention here and saying what I can offer, right? This is a service, what I provide. I'm not getting paid. So that's what I'm doing. I just wanted to explain it. So going back into role play, what I'm saying is, so yes, I thought it was really important to mention that I feel like I have about 3 weeks more of lessons. I feel comfortable I could teach through that. And I'm totally willing to offer that. After that, probably pull in primary, president, or substitutes, or you're going to probably have to figure it out from there. But I did want to let you know that. So
Sister Dylan, would it be okay if I just, I'll start looking and if it's okay, can I let you know when we find a replacement? Could you just keep serving until we find a replacement?
Unfortunately not. I wish I could. Definitely if it's earlier, let me know. I would love to hear that. But if I'm going to have to say 3 weeks, I've really felt like I've thought about it, and 3 weeks is kind of what I have. But I am willing to offer that. And I know the primary has a substitute list. I mean, that's something. I'm sure they can figure it out.
Okay, Sister Dylan, I appreciate it. And I'll get you released. And thank you so much for your service. I just have to ask you this though. There have been several members of the church lately that have been losing their faith, struggling in their testimony. And I just want to know, how's your testimony doing? Is your testimony okay? Is there anything I should know about your testimony and how your faith is?
Oh, I'm feeling really good about where I am right now. Thank you for asking.
But is there any, have you or your husband been struggling with any doubts? We've had some people leave the ward recently because of kind of faith crisis stuff, like listening to bad podcasts and things like John Dehlin. And so, is there anything like that maybe I could help you with to resolve your concerns?
So I'm stepping out now. I'm not going to speak for myself because, as you said, I value my husband attending, right? My spouse attending, and maybe we have children that are attending. Is that right?
Yep. Okay. You don't want to get them in trouble. So
what I'm going to say, now I'm stepping back in. I'm blending my experience with theirs with an outcome in my values, right? Okay. So, what I would say, hold on, now
So
I'm
I'll
outside
re-ask.
what you
So
were
I'll
saying.
re-ask. So I'll just say, a lot of people have been losing their faith lately.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know that I've studied this stuff and I can really help. And so is it possible that you or your husband or some family members are having a faith crisis? And is there anything, I can do? Is your faith okay? How's your faith?
So again, I really need you to hear me when I say this, okay? Our family's fine. Our family is fine. You've been great. I know, boy, our family really enjoys the word and we appreciate all the work you do. This is something that's about timing, that I'm sensing, and that I need. And so, but other than that, there's nothing for you to worry about. Thanks for your concern, though.
I think that does it. Thank you, sweetie. That was good. Did that feel hard?
No, not too hard.
Bad? Okay.
I mean, I did have to pivot, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully that was helpful.
That was great. Yeah. So basically what Margi just tried to model is what I call like biting your tongue and smiling, and you're just repeating and repeating and repeating. And eventually, if you don't want to actually harm the relationship, you just keep saying the same thing over again and smiling.
So
everything's great. No, thank you for asking. No, seriously, everything's great. I love you guys. Don't
this
worry.
is a timing thing. This is a timing thing. And you just have to say it 2 or 3 times. People get it really quick. Like, nope, this is a timing thing. Yes, but your family is your husband. Nope, this is a timing thing. And once you say it 2 or 3 times, people are like, yep, I'm not getting you further.
Yeah, the words I like to use are, oh, thank you so much for asking. No, everything's great. Things are really stressful at home right now. My husband's traveling a lot, and we just kind of need to simplify. And don't worry. We love church. We love, you guys. We love our community. Everyone's doing great. We just need to simplify right now. But as soon as things clear up, we'll let you know, and we'll be right back, potentially. So thanks for your concern. Just give us a little space, and then we'll let you know when things clear up. That's kind of the language that I like to use. Margi.
Yeah, and I think this is where, because I know that's your approach, and I love that that's your approach, and I've seen that approach. And so here's where you have to connect with yourself. I don't lie. So I don't say I want to see someone if I don't want to see someone, because it creates more trouble for me and more problems. And then it messes with my authenticity. And I don't like feeling like I'm sacrificing authenticity. So with the bishop, I said things that I thought were true. My family loves, right? I didn't say I love it. I said my family loves, or my family values this ward. Or, on a level, I can appreciate the work that you do. We appreciate the work you do. But I'm not going to say things that are overtly not true, because that feels uncomfortable for me. And so everyone can be different, and this is just a differentiation thing. But you'll note that in kind of when you compare, contrast how I respond in some of these role plays as opposed to John.
Yeah, and for me, I feel fine using positive and vague language, knowing that with the intent of my language being to disarm, to make them feel like I'm not a threat, to make them feel like everything is okay, and to not raise alarm bells. And I don't believe in overt lying either, but who knows? Maybe I will come back. Maybe I will change my mind.
It's
and
valid.
so for me, I'm okay just saying words that make them feel disarmed and that make them feel reassured that everything's fine. Because really, a bishop's going to be bummed if you can't serve in a calling. And a ward member's going to be bummed if you're not showing up. But they'd much rather just have a happy, positive response than to think you are going down the rabbit hole and are about to become a threat and take a bunch of ward members with you. So for me,
we definitely agree there.
The upside of just keeping it positive and light and non-specific is way better than any engagement that's going to trigger their alarm bells and make them feel like you're a potential threat. That's what I think.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Well, we are not done with this topic. In fact, we only got through, was it 1 of the 6 things that we wanted to cover? Yeah. So we are going to do a part 3 and maybe even a part 4 of communicating with believing family and friends. If you need more help right now, go to MormonFaithCrisis.com. And you can scroll in the first 10 or 20 episodes, 2 episodes where we go into depth on these topics. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to ask, if you value Margi coming on this program, if you value Natasha coming on this program, if you value Carah helping out with this program, and you want to see more Mormon Faith Crisis navigation content on Mormon Stories Podcast, I have a favor to ask. Please go to mormonfaithcrisis.com, click on the donate button there, and become a monthly donor. That money that you donate is separate from the general Mormon Stories Podcast Fund. We're trying to provide extra content in addition to the content we already provide. And if you become a monthly donor at mormonfaithcrisis.com, we promise we will use all of that money to bring people like Margi and Natasha, other mental health professionals, get care support. We promise to use that money to provide good content. We don't believe in bringing professionals on and not making it worth their while. And so if you value this content, we'll know that by you guys becoming a monthly donor. If we find that nobody values this content, we may just stop doing it or do it a lot less because that's how this business rolls. Sustainability is what keeps us alive. All right. So Margi, any final words before we part for today? I love that shirt you're wearing.
Thank you. I went for a pattern.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
Yeah, but
living large.
You look super cute.
Thanks, babe. I appreciate it.
I can say that because I'm married to you.
Thank you, everyone, for the discussion today. Carah, you're a trooper.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that my husband is watching right now, and he did just text me that I look like I'm going snowboarding and that I look cute. So all spouses are being complimented right now. Just want to add that.
Aaron, you're awesome. I'll compliment you. Shout out to Aaron. Thanks for holding down the fort so Carah can come work with me. Yeah.
That's
Thanks,
right.
babe. Yeah. Aaron's awesome. He got a little bit like Carah's the best. I'm going to go clean the house for 3 hours last night. So
holy moly.
Great husband award.
Wow.
Just want to shout out. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know what happened. I woke up to a brand spanking clean house, like every room too. So all of this is possible because my husband is freaking awesome.
It's amazing.
I want to make some reference to sign language, but I'm gonna show restraint.
All right, tell me after.
It's a recent TikTok episode you did where you did a little sign language.
Oh yeah.
Well, sometimes I make a joke that you don't get.
I know. I took that one down. My sister said that was weird, and I was like, all right, I'll take it off. Now everyone's like, what are you guys talking about?
We're making veiled references to nuanced
Inside
videos.
jokes.
Final thing. Thanks to everyone who commented today. If you want to ask a question or share a concern or your scenario, please go to mormonstories.org. Leave a comment in the comment section of the post for this series. It's about 6 or 8 episodes ago, and we'll hopefully include your comment or question on air. Thanks to everyone who commented or asked questions today. If we didn't get to your comment or question, again, please go post it on mormonstories.org in the comment section. We'll include it in a future episode. And the last thing I just want to do is just remind everybody, we've got a ton of really cool Thrive events coming up. Natasha and I and Margi are doing a retreat in just a few weeks in mid-October in Provo, Orem. If you want to spend 2.5 days with me, Margi, and Natasha, get all sorts of content and specialized content for healing and growth, you can go to thrivebeyondreligion.com/events, and you can sign up for that retreat. You can also, Thrive for Women is this weekend, but it's already sold out. So if you don't forget, if you have a ticket, don't forget. If you do have a ticket, make sure and go. You'll see
the wonderful
Carah
and amazing Carah.
Natasha, Margi will be there not as a participant.
Dana Bunn is speaking.
Our friend David
Lisa
Bunn,
Hacking.
Dana Bunn, Lisa Hacking, so many amazing people.
Laura Schnell.
So go to Thrive Time for Women if you have a ticket. If you don't, then the next thing you can do is sign up for Thrive Day, November 14th. Adults will have it will be a full day in the Salt Palace of amazing content. If you have a youth, 12 to 18 years old, you can sign up for Thrive Day for Youth on the same website at thrivebeyondreligion.com/events. We'll put links to all this in the show notes. And there's going to be Thrive Days. There's going to be Thrive St. George, Thrive Southern Canada, Alberta area. There are all sorts of Thrive Days that are popping up in the kind of January, February, March timeframe. And all you got to do is go to thrivebeyondreligion.com/events, find an event near you. And If you want to organize your own Thrive event in an area near you, we literally will help you organize your own Thrive event where we'll send Carah or send Natasha or send maybe even Margi down to wherever you live and help you host your own event and help you find local speakers that can be amazing. So if you want to host your own Thrive event, go to thrivebeyondreligion.com/events, email Clint at thrivebeyondreligion@gmail.com, and Clint will help you organize the Thrive event where you live. So that's it. Please support us. Donate to MormonFaithCrisis.com to see this content continue. Margi, if people want to reach out to you for any of your services or expertise, what should they do?
I have a blog website. Beauty in the Now, or you can follow me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. There you go.
All right. Yeah. Check out beautyinthenow.org for more Margi Amazingness. She is a coach. She tends to be full, but if you are looking for some coaching, Margi can sometimes help. And there's lots of other good coaches and therapists as well. So, all right, that's it. Carah, thanks again for joining us. You went the extra mile and you came in while you were still recovering from being sick. So thank you for coming in.
Yeah, I grew up, watching the Olympics 1996, and I just drove here thinking, like, this is my Carrie Shrug moment. Like, this is me on the vault right now, putting in the effort, winning the gold medal. So I showed up. I did the job. I hope my coughing wasn't too obnoxious. Thanks for everyone for bearing with me. This was a really fun one, though. I'm glad I did miss it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do a slow clap. Carah.
Why?
Coming in. It's just a joke.
Yeah.
Slow clap for coming in.
He doesn't feel like this was Olympic gold medal.
No, it was. No, that was a sincere slow clap.
Oh, great. Okay.
Did I not look sincere enough?
That feels like an oxymoron. Are there sincere slow claps? I feel like slow claps by nature.
Okay, that was
a
a lame
little
attempt
bit...
at being funny. That was me trying to be funny. I'm always trying to be funny now, Carah.
Yeah.
It's your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. He's always trying. Trying is the operative word.
Keep at it. Keep at it. Bit by bit.
All right.
I hope you guys are all really enjoying this like fun interpersonal work atmosphere that we have. Like the DeLynns and then Carah. This is like Three's Company kind of thing going on here.
Come and knock on our door.
Yeah.
That's Three's Company. That's a reference that few of you will get. But if you're old, if you're 52 or older, you'll know why I just sang, come and knock on our door.
Or you watch Nick at Night growing up.
Oh.
You guys watch Nick at Night?
All right, everyone. Take care. Stay good. Be good to each other. Email us at mormonstories@gmail.com if you have feedback. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you guys all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. Take care, everybody.